Hello, everybody, and welcome back to eMedQuest. We know that aortic dissection is one of the most lethal and most commonly missed diagnoses in the emergency medicine. Today, we are covering everything: the anatomy, pathophysiology, classifications, clinical traps, diagnostic approach from Rosen's Book of Emergency Medicine. Let's start first by talking about the anatomy of aorta. So, the aorta is not a simple tube, it has three distinct layers, and understanding each is essential for understanding dissection. So, the first layer is intima. This is the inner endothelial lining, it is smooth and quite thin, comes directly in contact with the blood, and this is where the tear begins. Layer 2 is called media. This is the middle layer and the most critical. It is composed of three things. It has got elastic fibers, it has got smooth muscle cells, and it has got collagen fibers. Media gives aorta its viscoelastic property. That means it allows the aorta to distend under systolic pressure, store energy elastically, and then recoil during diastole to propel the blood pressure to peripheral organs. And layer 3 is what is known as adventitia, which is the tough outer connective tissue layer. It is the last barrier between aorta and free rupture into thorax or the pericardium. If this is our heart, the course of aorta is such that it exits the LV outflow, makes a 180-degree turn or 180-degree arch, and then travels posteriorly through the mediastinum, crossing the diaphragm at exactly the level of T12, and then it bisects into the common iliac arteries at approximately L4, which is around the umbilicus. Now, if we talk about the mechanism of dissection, there are three distinct pathological mechanisms that can take place. But the fundamental process is that there is separation of media layer by blood, generally with formation of a hematoma or a false lumen. The three distinct pathological mechanisms are as follows. First, there is the creation of a false lumen. So basically, a tear in intima causes the blood to pass through the tear because the blood pressure is so high, right? That blood then dissects between intima and adventitia, as we can see over here, splitting through the diseased media, basically creating a false lumen alongside a true lumen. So true lumen is where the blood is actually flowing from. This becomes the false lumen. Now this false lumen, it can propagate in two directions. Either it can propagate antegrade, whereby it would go downstream, or it can propagate retrograde, whereby it would go back to the aortic root and coronary ostia, depending on where there is more diseased media. Now this false lumen, as this starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger, it can compress the true lumen, it can lead to ischemia, it can occlude any branch vessel's origin, leading to malperfusion syndromes, and the outer wall of the false lumen is only adventitia, which is quite thin and prone to rupture. The second mechanism is creation of intramural hematoma. Hematoma formation within the aortic wall without any evidence of intimal tear. Okay, so blood forms within the media itself, likely because of the small vessels that supply the aortic wall. There will be no visible intimal flap on conventional angio, but it can easily get diagnosed with CTs. Most of this occurs in the descending aorta. The third mechanism is penetrating atherosclerotic ulcer. There will be an erosion of an intimal atherosclerotic plaque that penetrates through the intima to the media. Blood can then dissect the media and go beyond into adventitia. So, this is gradually progressive, generally in elderly patients with extensive atherosclerosis. And once again, this also most commonly occurs in the descending aorta. Since the problem of all of this is that the media is damaged, and then that kind of propagates the blood flow, because even if there's an tear in intima or no tear in intima, it is the diseased media that propagates the aortic dissection. So understanding what damages the media is important. First is mechanical stress. This is generally a chronic process. So hypertension is the most common risk factor present in majority of these patients. High pulse pressure and shear stress at the aortic wall leads to mechanical fatigue of the medial elastic fibers, leading to degeneration and increased susceptibility to tear. The second one is if they have some form of a structural weakness or some kind of a genetic weakness. We see this most in Marfan syndrome, okay, where there is a mutation in the gene leading to abnormal elastic fiber formation in the media. This is the most common connective tissue associated with acute aortic dissection and often tested in boths. But other genetic causes like Turner syndrome, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, all of it can also cause defective connective tissue and hence lead to aortic dissection. And the third one is any form of an acute precipitant. So things like cocaine, amphetamines, they cause a massive sympathetic surge, leading to increased blood pressure, increased heart rate, and massive shear force on the already weakened media. Then weightlifting, again, it causes massive valsalva, increased intrathoracic pressure, and leads to aortic shear force. Peripartum period itself is a risk factor because the hormonal changes lead to medial weakening. Then any kind of decelerating trauma, which is a high speed mechanism that can lead to the tethering of aorta at the ligamentum arteriosum. This is at the level of left subclavian. And finally, fluoroquinolones. These antibiotics interfere with collagen synthesis. We know it is associated with rupture of tendon. It also puts patient at increased risk of aortic dissection during treatment. Now that we have understood what creates weakening of the media, let's understand the pathophysiology behind why aortic dissection can be so fatal. So there are four major mechanisms that drive mortality in this condition. First is branch vessel compromise, leading to some kind of malperfusion. Remember this figure from the medical school where we understood about the different branches of aorta? So imagine that the false lumen or the displaced intimal flap covers one of the branch origins. Flow to that territory basically reduces and drops, leading to ischemia. If this happens at the level of carotids, it leads the patient to have a stroke. If it happens at the level of coronaries, then it leads to MI. If it happens at the level of renal arteries, it leads to acute kidney injury. If it happens at the level of mesenteric arteries, it leads to mesenteric ischemia. And at level of iliac arteries, it basically leads to limb ischemia. There is one more artery that's not drawn over here, which is the artery of Adam-Kiewicz, which basically leads to anterior spinal cord ischemia if there is decreased blood flow, leading to paraplegia. Next mechanism is via retrograde dissection. So this false lumen basically propagates back, goes all the way back to the aortic root. Over there it ruptures into the pericardial space, leading to hemopericardium and then leading to a tamponade. Another mechanism is aortic valve involvement. The dissection can disrupt the aortic annulus or the attachment of the aortic valve leaflets. So if the valve leaflets they prolapse, it leads to acute severe aortic regurg. Obviously, the left ventricle in this scenario is unprepared, and so it cannot accommodate this acute volume overload, leading to flash pulmonary edema and then to cardiogenic shock. The final mechanism is by remembering about the thin adventitia, which is the only barrier that remains between the blood and outside of aorta. So, if there is a tear in the adventitia, blood pours out into thorax, mediastinum, peritoneum, whichever is the level of the tear, and it leads to a very catastrophic hemorrhagic shock.